All right, we are recording, so welcome everyone to the ECE webinar series, Summer 2022. We are in the August session today. We usually do 3 of these sessions every quarter, so we do 1 a month typically. Sometimes we skip a month in the summer. This summer we decided not to, but we are glad that you are here to join us. So let's jump right into, whoops. My thing goes too fast. And let me share some information with you to get us started. So first of all, my name is Muhs, and I am the Department Chair for Early Childhood Education and Human Services here at Rasmussen University. And I'd be remiss if I did not share with you a quick soundbite about our education programs. We do have fully online degree programs, associate degree, and a bachelor's completer degree for those of you that started a bachelor's and never finished, or started an associate's degree and never finished. We also have opportunities for a certificate and a diploma in early childhood education. If you don't need the full degree yet, you can kind of ladder yourself through if you'd like. You can find out more information at our website, and I encourage you to do so when you get an opportunity. It gives you lots of information about our programs. We did just reduce our tuition for our associate's degree as well, just in April. So if you are interested in pursuing or completing an associate's degree, I encourage you to take a look at this. This is a fabulous price point for a complete associate degree, and this is what it is. This is what it is if you have no transfer credit, if you have nothing coming in, you're starting off fresh. But if you happen to have a CDA credential already, you can take 3 courses off that completed dollar amount there, and you can finish in shorter amount of time. If you also want to do some self-directed assessments, I know that's a fancy thing for like a test out, and if you take those for some of your general education courses, you could save even more money. So it's really important if you are looking to do this, now's the time. Our field is headed this direction, everyone, and we want you to get there in the most economical, time-effective, and painless process as you possibly can. You can also get some educational benefits through some of your employers or some of your alliances. So you might be employed by some of the larger early childhood education companies out there, Learning Care Group, KinderCare, Bright Horizons, or maybe a smaller early childhood program or a local state or regional program. We may have an alliance with that organization that you work for, and it may allow you to take some money off of your tuition through a tuition grant, and there may be other benefits as well. The same thing goes for those of you that are participants with Quorum eLearning, now through Teaching Strategies, or Pro Solutions. If you are part of one of those 2 organizations and you've been taking training with them, you may be also eligible for a tuition grant, which is a percentage off your tuition. It does depend on which program you're in or choose to pursue, but it could reduce your tuition and your total cost. And that is always what we're going for here. We want you to get a good quality education. That is something you're going to be able to use right off the bat. So be sure to take a look. You can go to rasmussen.edu/employer benefits if you're curious if your employer is on the list. We also have an information session, and this is great. Even if you're not interested, you might know somebody else who is. And so it's a good time to come and ask some questions. It's hosted by me. I have stuff to share if you don't have questions, but if you do have questions, we can tailor it to what you need to know in order to make the best decision about your education. I'm a big person on being informed, and if you come to Rasmussen, that's a bonus. If you get your education, that's the win. So hopefully you would want to attend or encourage a coworker, colleague, or family member to attend. Our next one is next Tuesday, so it's at 8 p.m. Central Time, which means, yes, it's a little late for y'all on the East Coast at 9 p.m. About a half hour long is usually what we spend, but I'll be here to answer your questions if we need to go longer. Now, you are in a WebEx training room, so this is a space that's fully online. We are muted to avoid background noise because you likely all are at home. And I did go ahead and turn off the video tonight. Usually I put myself on video at least, but I know that we are going to have a big group tonight, and I wanted to be careful and cautious of bandwidth, which can always be challenged by video. So you'll see a picture of me in a second, but no video tonight, so you don't have to worry about that. I do recommend you use your computer speakers and microphone if you can, but you can also call in, and you can switch back and forth. So if something happens and you lose audio, don't panic. You can even log out and log back in if you want to, and it won't affect your attendance. Just, make sure you can hear me. And then add questions or comments to the chat box throughout the session. That's how we're going to do a majority of our conversation tonight, is through the chat. The chat is on the bottom right-hand side, and there is a box for you to type in your message. And then there's also a send to drop down. And when you hit that drop down, make sure it says all participants, because we want to benefit from your questions. You may have the same question as somebody else that they didn't want to ask, and it may help and benefit each other. And also your advice and your ideas can benefit one another. So I want you to be able to share that with everyone. 1 hour of in-service professional development hour is awarded for your attending tonight. You do need to attend for the whole session, and we do track that. So it's important for you to be here. You can log back in and log back out if you need to for technical reasons, but you want to make sure that it shows that you are here for a majority of the session. You will get it via email 48 hours or within 48 hours of this training. So you will not get it right after the training. You will not get it likely tomorrow, maybe tomorrow evening. You will get an email from or to the email you used to sign up for the session. And in that email will be a link, and that link is where your certificate is. So it's not an attachment. It comes as a link. You do want to check your junk mail and your spam folder, and you want to check that other email that's in Outlook. So Outlook sometimes will have two, your primary one, and then it'll have a secondary one where kind of all the other stuff goes. Check there too. If you don't get it by Monday night, say, at the end of business, you'll want to give me an email to let me know that you haven't received it and I can check for you. But like I said, check all those other places first just in case, and make sure you're checking the email you used to sign up for this session. So Magda says it's possible to get a reduction in your debt if you start working at one of these companies after you graduate. I don't think so, Magda. That would be something you'd want to check with that company, but I'm not familiar with any of the companies doing that. But I do know that depending, if you've got your associate's degree, some of those companies have benefits towards a bachelor's degree, that kind of thing. So that might be a possibility. It's always good to ask questions. Credited for Oklahoma. So let me give you an example. So if we have not gone ahead and had these sessions approved in all 50 states. Every state has their own individual way of recording and requesting and approving hours, and it would be more work than doing the 1 hour session. So we have not done that. So that's why we provide the certificate of 1 hour of in-service, and you can go ahead and check with your state training authority that tracks all your training hours to see if it is something that will go towards that time. Many of the states do have where they have a certain number, a certain percentage needs to be done through the approved training route for that state, and then other training hours can also be recognized. And because we are a university, that usually makes a difference. All right. So here I am. This is me. I'm Mary Muhs. I just earned my doctorate 2 weeks ago, not even 2 weeks ago. So I can call myself Dr. Mary Muhs. It sounds very strange, but I'm super excited to have made that milestone. And if any of you are looking to do that in your future too, it is a haul. I will say that. I can't lie, but it is really kind of cool after you're done. So thank you guys for the congratulations. And hopefully I can share some of my wisdom now with you. So wearing the many hats of an ECE director. So this is something that I've been mulling over and thinking about. Thank you guys all so much. That I've been thinking about and working with for many, many years. And so I wanted to share with you what the qualities are and what you look for as you're wearing the many hats of being an ECE director. So let's just jump in, and my mouse is very sticky. There we go. So today we're going to start by really identifying qualities necessary to be an effective early childhood program leader. I mean, hey, that's enough, right? There's going to be pretty heavy stuff on there. So we're going to definitely be able to identify and hopefully basically describe what those are so that you have an understanding. And at the end, I'm going to ask you to set a personal goal before you leave of which one of these qualities you're going to focus on first. Okay, because you're probably going to end this going, oh my God, I have a lot to learn or I have a lot to work on, but that's okay because we all are lifelong learners. So an introduction. So I would like to find out who you are or what position you hold right now in your program. So if you could tell me in the chat what your title is. Are you a center director, a program director? Do you own a program? Are you a head teacher, lead teacher, master teacher? Kind of like, what's your title? I'd love to know. Head of school, well, that sounds very official, Robin. I love that. Assistant head of school, that's even cooler. They're all cool, head of school. I've never heard that before. Administrative directors, owners, teachers, lead teachers, directors, center directors. Fantastic. So we do have a great combination here on this call of those of you that are doing this, have been a center or program leader, director, owner, head of school, and potentially for a long time, some of you. Others of you are lead teachers, master teachers, program coordinators, assistant directors, and then others of you are assistant teachers, and I saw an aide on here. I've seen associate teachers, assistant directors again. You're looking like at a succession plan right there. So we want to, in early childhood education, create a way for our teachers, assistant teachers, aides to move up the pipeline, to be inspired to become lead teachers, master teachers, to then be inspired to become program coordinators, assistant directors, center directors, and then into owners, to be heads of school, which is like just a prestigious title all around. That's just an impressive title. You know, we want you to see the possibilities of how you can go from the beginning all the way up the line. And hopefully during that time, you learn a lot about yourself, but hopefully during that time, you discover the qualities that are needed to continue to move up that ladder so that you can be successful and feel confident and feel good about leading an early childhood program. We know in the field right now we have lots and lots of space for teachers. We need teachers like crazy, but we also need really good leaders because somebody has to take the reins. Somebody has to be there to lead the group, to inspire the children and the parents, and make sure that everybody is moving forward. And so that's kind of what we're here today to talk about a little bit. And I want to start by talking about what it's like to be a program leader, a center director, head of school. What's it like? What kind of hats do child care directors or owners wear? This picture is actually a teacher picture, but most of these, you know, fall under the same set of hats, right? So if we were to look at this picture, right, firefighter, oh, that's scary, Kim. That's a scary one. But if we were to look at this list, we could take all these hats and put them on, a center director or an owner, and add more to that. So what would you add to that set of hats? And notice it does say zookeeper on there. If you can read it, it's a little blurry at the top as they get small, but one says zookeeper, kind of concerns me a bit. Problem solver. Yes, Tish, we will have the recording available, and usually in the email, it not only gives you the certificate, but it will also give you a link to the recording page in our library guide that you'll have access to. Referee, oh gosh, yes. Keeping the bookkeeping, many of them. Friend and caring person, I like that. Multitasker. Event planner, yes, that's a maintenance worker, mechanic, yeah, there's a lot on here. And it's really hard to be a director. It's really hard to be a program owner. I was a center director, assistant director, and director of an early childhood program for probably about, I think it was about 10, 11 years between different programs. I was a center director of or assistant director of a very small program, family owned, had a couple of sites, but it was, you know, a smaller program. And then I was a center director of a very large program where we actually had two of us because it was such a large program, and then a program that was kind of in between. So, every time you put on the hat of a director or an owner, you're putting on all of these hats. I tried to find a picture of that caps for sale guy. Do you remember that book? And he puts the caps all on and they're all stacked up. Couldn't find a good enough picture. But that's really what I always think of. It's just constantly growing. We're constantly putting on new hats and new roles to play. Here is a picture of that someone created of all of the possibilities that are up here, but I think you guys hit on all of these and plus some more. So, you know, referee is here, zookeeper's still here. That's a little unnerving for me. I'm not really sure what that means, but you know, I'm not sure that that's really like something we should be calling our children or our families or our employees. But some of these are very real, and some of these we have to do every day, and some of these we do every week. Some of these we do only once a year. But it is something that we always have to be aware of as a director. And what I did was I was thinking, okay, how can we put all of these roles that we play, all these hats that we play, and talk about the qualities of all these hats that we play? And it was like almost impossible for me to think in that way. So what I did was I went ahead and I said, all of these things that we do, all of these hats we put on, what are the qualities that these hats require of us? Right? In order for us to fulfill these job descriptions, if you think of them that way, what are the qualities that we have to be successful with these hats? And some of them are overlapping, some of them are very distinct, but let's take a look at some of these hats that we have to, or some of these qualities that we have to have. And some of you are putting them in here already. Lifelong learner. You have to be willing to continue to learn. And I don't say that just because I'm in higher education. I've always been that way. You have to be flexible. You have to have integrity. You have to be credible. You have to be humble. You have to be detail-minded, very important. A servant. Friendly, open-minded, and a forward thinker. So these are the 10 qualities that I've come up with, looking at all of those roles, all of those hats that an early childhood center director, program leader, owner, head of school must have to deal with in a day, a week, or a year. And some of these, like I said, work together, and some of them are very distinct. So let's take a look at the first one. How are you a lifelong learner? So tell me in the chat box, how are you a lifelong learner? What have you done to be a lifelong learner? Learn something every day. Continue to take education classes, trainings, absolutely. I love that opportunity to learn something new every day. Open-minded, understanding, and courageous. Trainings, podcasts, yes, those are great for the commute or on a walk. Wonderful. And you've earned a Master of Education in ECE. Good for you. Good for you. So what does a lifelong learner need to look like? Okay, so here's some things that I thought of. What does a lifelong learner need to look like? They need to read daily, okay? They need to be able to take courses in professional development, right? Trainings. They need to be able to do those. And I think with the pandemic came a blessing for training, and that whether you like it or not, online learning is here to stay. It was here before the pandemic. It blew up during the pandemic, and it's still here today. Obviously, you're all here. And so online learning makes it more convenient for us. We can listen to speakers, and we can learn information from experts and professionals from all over the world. That is super cool. We can't go there, right, even as much as we want to go to some of those beautiful places, but we can still learn from them. I love that. Subscribe to newsletters. Good idea. Seek opportunities for growth. Always looking for a way to do better. Take care of your physical health. That's really important because you can't be a lifelong learner if you're not healthy enough to be one. Pursue your passion and interests. This is really important because it doesn't have to just be in early childhood. A lifelong learner, you can be a person who loves to cook. And so as you learn new recipes and techniques in cooking or chopping or sauteing, you are a lifelong learner. Perhaps you like to horseback ride, and you can learn how to ride a horse. You can learn how to take care of horses. You can learn how to train a horse. You can work with kids on horses. You're pursuing your passion and your interests. It keeps you young. You have to love progress to be a lifelong learner, right? Because when you learn something, you're not just learning it to store it away forever, right? You're learning it to use it and do something with it. And you're setting your goals for yourself. And hopefully you're achieving those goals, but you are setting goals so you have something to look forward to, something to do in the future. And you want to embrace change. And that's really hard for most of us, and that could be an entire training on its own, is how to embrace change. But change allows you to be a lifelong learner. Because when you change something, you have to look at something in a new way. And that's part of growth and learning. and really practicing a growth mindset. Who knows what a growth mindset? I'm guessing a lot of you on here know what a growth mindset is, right? What kind of mindset do you have? Looking at this, do you have a growth mindset or are you pretty fixed mindset right now? I'm sorry, it looks like this little disclaimer is over some of the words. Are you growth or fixed? Where do you tend to be? Lots of you are saying growth. Are you 100% sure? Are you a growth mindset always, all the time? There you go, Natalie. Depends on the situation. Absolutely. Being open to learning and growing more. You're right. In between. When are you a fixed mindset? When are you a fixed mindset? Do you have an example to share? I'm glad more of you are saying both now, so you're starting to think about that a little bit. We're not always a growth mindset. Growth mindsets are hard. Yes, when you're tired and worn out, you just are just done, right? You're like, it'll just be what it'll be. I don't have to worry about it anymore, right? Having a growth mindset means that you know that whatever you were given when you were born is not the end-all be-all. That you have an opportunity to make change, to grow and learn, to be different today than you were yesterday, right? A fixed mindset is just saying, you know what, I'm good at it or I'm not good at it. That's just the way it'll be. Instead of working to improve or working to learn what is next on that page. Right. So it's important to have a growth mindset when you are a leader, because lifelong learning doesn't mean, like I said, you just learn it and you shove it away and never use it again. Why did you bother to learn it in the first place? In our world, we're learning things because we want to take them to the children and families that we work with every day. So let's look at the next one. Would you say you're flexible? Flexibility is one of the key aspects, I believe, of being a strong leader. Flexibility. Are you flexible? Flexible but firm. That's a tricky one. Sheree, that's a tricky one. You have to be in early childhood. You're right. Most of the time. Now, flexible doesn't necessarily mean that you bend to everyone's whims, okay? Flexible doesn't mean you have no plans, that you just, you just sway in the wind and do whatever you're going to do, right? That's not what flexible means, okay? So let's look at flexible a little bit. Flexible means that you are flexing your leadership style to a situation at hand, okay? We'll look at that in just a second, a neat little visual of some of the learning styles. There's a million different ways to check your learning style, or your leadership style, I should say. And we'll just look at one of them. You go where you're needed, when you're needed, right? If you're needed somewhere, you drop it and you go because you know that you are needed there. Whether it's to provide guidance, whether it's to provide hands-on support, whether it's to provide just a quick reassurance, you're there. You can adjust easily to new requirements or standards. And boy, oh boy, that happens a lot in early childhood. Sometimes we feel like the standards are changing constantly and we're being asked to do new things, right? And being able to be flexible means you're able to adjust to that without breaking. And bending to meet needs where able. Flexible doesn't mean you change your mind all the time. Flexible means that you are consistent, that you are strong, but you bend and flex where needed, right? You go when and where you're needed. You flex your leadership style, and what I mean by that is that it depends on the situation at hand. I remember doing a leadership a personality quiz, I should say, years and years and years ago. And I did it, and I took the quiz, and I did all the adding of the numbers. They're all different. And then you got your totals at the bottom, and they said, which one is your highest number? And I said, there isn't a high number. And they said, well, that's not possible. I said, no, they're even all the way across. One had one number higher. They were even all the way across. And they said, well, that's not possible. And I said, well, it's possible because I really try to adapt my leadership style to where I need it to be for who I need it to be, which I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's kind of how I was then. So sometimes people need you to be one kind of leader, and sometimes you need to be another. And here's just an example. And you could easily find your leadership style. You can go online. You can Google leadership style surveys. You can get them done with particular organizations and groups and doing trainings. And so there's all different kinds, right? This is one of them. And this is one that just says, here's some different leadership styles. There's a commanding one. Do what I tell you. You know, my way is the highway. That's the way it is, right? Visionary. Come with me. Let's go look on this vision together. Let's embark on this journey. Let's move forward. Let's see what's coming next. This is what I want it to look like. We'll get there together kind of thing, right? Affiliative leadership means people come first. So they're going to look to the people to help make the decisions. A democratic, very similar. Democratic is we want everybody involved in the decision-making process, right? It's not just my decision, it's our decision. Affiliative is more like, let's make sure everyone feels okay about the decisions. Pace setting is interesting because pace setting is do as I do now. So kind of like a follow me type of thing, right? So it's kind of like be like me, right? We're all going to do this together, but be like me, follow me. Whereas coaching is very much, let's see where you're at. What are you working on now? Let's try this together. Let's try this alone. Let's see if you can do this, and I'm going to coach you and help you and support you and rah-rah you in order to help support your growth. Right, Trista, it doesn't work the same for every child. So why would being a commanding leader not work in early childhood education? I mean, you can come up with that in your brain, right? And just say, oh my gosh, you know, I could just see that, right? With kids alone, that's not going to work, right? With coworkers, that's not going to work either. I could see many a coworker putting their arms on their hips and saying, excuse me, like, what are you telling me to do? Like, don't I already understand why we're doing it the way we're doing it? You need to make sure that you are flexible in your leadership style to support the needs of your program, your staff, and your children and families. It's not easy to do, but it's important to keep that in mind as you're working on your leadership skills. So let's look a little bit at integrity. Now, integrity is one of those things that, do you know what integrity means, right? That's always one of those words that everyone's like, oh yeah, we know what it means, but do we really know what it means? Can we really define integrity? So I defined it for us. Integrity is a noun, and it's the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles. Moral uprightness. He is known to be a man of integrity. Honesty is very important in integrity, yes. And moral principles, strong moral principles. I once had someone tell me that integrity is really do what you say and say what you mean, right? That's integrity, right? You keep your word. You say you're going to do something and you do it. And that kind of falls, Lorraine, a little bit into a couple of categories here. Okay, so we'll talk about credibility in a minute. But integrity is really being honest and standing your ground with moral principles. Okay, where might that pose a problem in early childhood education? Or maybe be challenging, not necessarily pose a problem. Being the same person no matter who is or who isn't watching. Absolutely, that's having integrity. You are who you are. That's it. Anytime somebody sees you, that's who you are. When might standing strong on moral principles be a challenge in early childhood education? The many licensing regulations, yeah. Adapting to people's personalities, with parents. Yeah, basically in everything we do, other people's children. So moral principles are great because they're yours. And you should have strong moral principles because typically early childhood educators do. It's part of the reason why we go into early childhood, because we want to stand up for those principles, for the children that can't stand up for themselves. The problem is that we are caring for other people's children, not our own. And so sometimes our morals and values might be different than those of the children and families that are in our care. They might be different than the programs that we're teaching in. So we have to make the decision as a leader, as a teacher, we have to make the decision of how we're going to handle that. That what if my moral decision is different than the child that's in front of me or the family that's in front of me? Or if I'm a center director, what if it's different than the teacher that is teaching in my classroom? It's very much going to come down to cultural and background issues. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm thinking of certain things happening right now in many of our schools across the country. We're dealing with gender, right? That's become quite a hot topic. What if your principles involving how a child identifies themselves is different than how that family and child do, or different than how that teacher would see it, or different than how your program sees it, your program's mission and philosophy? So it's something you really have to sit down and consider and plan that out. Does your moral compass match that of your programs, right? If it doesn't, how can you adapt? Not necessarily change your moral compass, right? Because it is who you are. You want that integrity. But how can you still support those that see it differently in your program? It's very, very difficult, very hard, and something that we're really working with in early childhood and in schools right now. There's one thing that we can use that's given us, this was most challenging, yes, absolutely. It was very hard, Robin, in COVID with masks or no masks. Wow, that was really different than what I think people thought it would be, right? And so how do we do that, right? You come across someone, I remember my father, here's an example. I remember my father who was very concerned at, 75 years old about COVID, and he was at a bank, and he did not want to, it was during, I think it was 2021, but it was during COVID hotspot time. And he was wearing masks, I was wearing masks, most people were wearing masks, but he was more concerned about the guy across the table from us, the desk, about whether or not he was vaccinated. And when he found out he wasn't vaccinated, he was so upset. My dad said, I won't do business with you. I'll only do business with people who are vaccinated. Whoa, that was a surprise for me sitting with him, right? But could that happen in early childhood programs? How do we do that? How do we do that? So it's something to consider. It's not necessarily something that you have to answer right now, but it's something that maybe you need to think about. And there's tools that we're given to help think about some of these things. And one of them is the Code of Ethical Conduct. And this is issued by NACE. And the National Association for the Education of Young Children, if you're not familiar, is a leading organization, professional organization, that really helps to guide the profession. Okay, and they've given us position statements on many, many things. Developmentally appropriate practice is the popular one, as well as the new guidelines on equity. But they've also given us the Code of Ethical Conduct. And this is it in a nutshell. It's longer. There's definitely more examples for you. But it allows you to be able to think through some of these decisions, perhaps, with a guide. So it's not just my thoughts and your thoughts, my opinions, your opinions. It's kind of like, here's the experts that tell us what we need to consider when it comes to children. And does this help us? Could this help us in some of these situations that we might get stuck in when we're dealing with our integrity? We want to maintain our integrity, but we also want to make sure that we're doing right by the children in our program. So never harm children is the number one, right? That's the number one. So if everything else goes by the wayside, that one should be the number one guide for helping us make any decisions. Even if that means that maybe we have to make a different decision than we thought we would have had to. So if you're not familiar with the Code of Ethics, I encourage you to check out the NACE website, where you can see the detailed document for the Code of Ethics. You can print a statement of commitment. You can sign it. You can have your staff sign it. You can have it discussed during group times, during staff meetings, where you're talking about some of these ethical situations that you might get into, and how can you make the best decision to maintain your integrity, but also support the children and families in your program who might be different. Let's keep going. We've got a lot of these today. So let's talk about credibility. Now, credibility and integrity are kind of similar, but they're different. Okay, of course. So when you think of credibility, what do you think of? How are you credible? I'd like to see what you guys think. When you think of credibility, it is, Abby, I agree. Taking responsibility for your work, okay. With your actions, listening, great. Do what you say and say what you do. See, Amy, these two kind of do the same thing, right? They're kind of two peas in a pod with this one. Are you fulfilling your job description? That's a great one. Being there when expected, honesty, doing what you say, honorable, giving credit where credit is due. That's a good one too, especially when it comes to academic integrity for us higher ed people. Consistency, yes. So let's take a look at this one a little bit more detail. What does credibility look like? So some thoughts on credibility. You guys have added them here. Decisions bound in evidence and research. This is really important, and this really is the higher ed part of me, saying you can't just make a determination for something without having something to back you up, okay? So you can't just say, I think this is the way we need to do this. Well, it might be totally true that all the evidence and all the research points you in that direction. But by using evidence and research to support your thinking and saying it and sharing it and providing it, you're giving credibility to what you say. It's not just your opinion anymore. It's coming from a whole bunch of trustworthy and ethical people that are telling you that this is the way that it's done. This is the evidence that shows this, right? That's where reading studies is really important. Reading research studies is really important because it gives you that backup. So when somebody says, why is play important? Well, you might say something like, well, play is how children learn. Well, great. How do you know that? Making sure you have some of that evidence and research at your fingertips so that you can share that with families, you can share that with colleagues, you can share that with stakeholders so that they know that you are walking the talk. Somebody said that in there. Consistency is really important. Credibility is consistency. If you say one thing to one person, you say the same thing to the other person, right? If you do one thing the one way for one person, you do that one thing the way for the other person. Or there's a reason why you're doing it differently, right? You're becoming equitable. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Thinking before acting or reacting. Credibility means you just don't jump in with 2 feet and 2 hands to handle it. You think before you react so that you're making a credible decision, something likely based on past experience, evidence, and research. And that you are trusting and trustworthy. So you trust others. You don't wait for them to earn your trust, right? You trust others, okay? And that you're trustworthy so that others don't have to wait to gain they don't have to wait for you to show them, right? You are already trustworthy, okay? It's hard to describe. I hope I got that right. Yes. Yeah, this can be a hard one, right? Because a lot of us know a lot of stuff, right? Even me, we're in the dissertation process, just finished it, like I said, 2 weeks ago. And so I'm in the dissertation process, and there's still some things that I just know. But I still had to find evidence to back up my know, what I know. So that it wasn't just my opinion saying that I'm saying it, and so did these other people. And that's what makes it real. That's what makes it true. So that say what you mean what you say thing that we were talking about, and some people have talked about on here, kind of say it in different ways. It's kind of the intersection of these 4 things, okay? It's the intersection of integrity, which we've already talked about, right? It's your intent, right? Do you have a pure intent? What is your intent? Is your intent to inform? Is your intent to share and be supportive of somebody else? What is your intent? It's also your capability. So are you capable, right? So are you able to follow through with what you're saying? So, for example, maybe you're sharing information about guiding children's behavior, right? And you're talking about that, but maybe you've never, ever worked with children ever in real life, right? No IRL for you. And you've just taken classes, that's all. You've never actually worked with children. Would you be capable of doing all the things that you're saying, right? Would you be capable? And unfortunately, in our world, results do matter, okay? Yes, in our early childhood world, process is most important, not product. But in the world of being credible and being seen as credible, it's the results that matter, right? So if you say something like, our program is the best in the entire county at providing children with kindergarten readiness skills to go to school, do you have data to back that up? That's credibility. Do you have a study, a survey? Did you talk to all the kindergarten teachers within your district to determine that you guys are definitely the one they would recommend their children, the preschoolers go to? Do you have those results, right? And you have, yeah, you do. You have to keep the word. That's the part of integrity, right? That's the part of integrity. So being credible is a lot. It's a lot of extra, as young people would say these days. It's a lot being credible, but being credible leads to everything else. So how do you practice humility? Now, humility is probably another one of those words you don't really know what it means. Being humble, what does humility look like? Humility is putting everyone else first. Listening. You're not afraid to be wrong. You accept feedback and own your part. You're modest. Yes, apologizing. Saying thank you. Being situationally aware. So maybe you are able to flex your personality a little bit in different situations, professional ones, personal ones, right? Letting others having a voice, saying please and thank you, being kind, right? Being humble. I love that, Anita, but what is humble? Right? Do we know what humble really means? One of the biggest things right now regarding humility is being culturally humble, or cultural humility. Cultural humility is the opportunity to say, I'm still learning about cultural differences, similarities, about how language and gender and religion and all those things that most of us don't know even a tad about, that we're still learning those things. Being culturally humble means I know I don't know what it's like in different cultural backgrounds. I am a white, middle-aged woman from the suburbs. I don't know what it's like in other people's shoes. But by being culturally humble, it means I'm willing to learn and I'm willing to admit that I'm still learning. And I'm going to make mistakes and I'm going to say things I'm not supposed to say or that might hurt someone's feelings, but I'm going to apologize for it and I'm going to learn it and I'm not going to do it again the next time. And this is really important when it comes to working with families. And you guys have said it right here just now. This is really important because we often, as leaders in early childhood programs, think that we know best. You know, we've got the role, we've got the part, right? We play the part. Some of us have the education to play the part, even high education to play the part. So we think we know it all. But we don't know that child and family, not from Adam. Not unless they're our kids. We don't know them. And so we are still learning them. And so understanding that we're still learning them and that some of our policies that are just there, written in stone, may not hit that family the right way, may not sit well with them. And we're going to have to learn how to help that family and how to help us understand that family in relation to that policy. Exactly. Making a mistake doesn't make it bad. Not taking accountability is what does. Yes. And this is really helpful when it comes to our families. Telling our families, I want to learn about you. I want to get to know you and your child. Telling your coworkers, your employees, I want to get to know you. Not just that you're my preschool teacher, that you're my infant teacher. I want to get to know you, Juanita, my preschool teacher. I want to know who you are. I want to know who your family is. I want to learn about you, about your culture, about your background. What makes you tick? What's important to you as an individual, right? Wanting and desiring to learn more about each other is cultural humility. So another one, do you attend to details? How many of you are list makers? Me, I'm a list maker. If I had my camera on, I'd show you my list. I'm a list maker. How many of you are organized? Do you have your calendars out and you got all the dates when everything's due? Like when licensing is coming, when so-and-so's immunizations are up, when you have to do your first aid and CPR training again, you know, all that, right? Yep. You're a hot mess, honestly, Kim. That's awesome. She's so honest. That's good. Sticky note queen. Oh, yes. How many of you think you're organized, but you're not? Be honest. If we had emojis. Oh, we do have some emojis. I just don't know if we've got any really good emojis. Oh, there's some. So, yes, you think you are, but you're really not. Or you're organized on the outside, but inside you're swimming like that duck, right? Have you ever seen that one where the duck is so calm and cool and floating on the water, and underneath the water his legs are swimming like crazy to keep afloat, right? Yes. Yes, I know many of us could take stock in sticky notes and be very rich people. Love this picture. How many center directors, owners, heads of schools, offices look close to this? Maybe not quite as bad. I used to work with a director, and she was awesome. Loved her, learned so much from her, still quote her every day. But her office, man, she had piles upon piles upon piles upon piles. And she knew where everything was. But boy, those piles. Crazy town. Crazy town. Being organized is really critical when you are a center director. Okay? It really does. But what does detail-minded really look like? And I left this open. I want to ask, what does detail-minded look like for you? Excel is your friend, Connie. Very good. What does detail? Just binders. Binder queen, I bet. Binder queen. What does detail-minded look like? An organized space to have an organized brain. Calendar reminders, Google Drives, lots of notes on your calendar and look at it daily. Reminders in your phone. I have lists in my phone. Put reminders on my phone. Alarms, yes. I have an alarm with Prince. Let's go crazy on it to remind me of things. Daily checklist, yes. There is no one right way to be detail-minded, but it's really critical in running an early childhood program because you have to keep in mind all the things you have to pay attention to. It's not just being able to be in the classroom every day and supporting your teachers and your families and all that kind of thing. It's making sure that you've got all the paperwork done, making sure you've done the bookkeeping, making sure you've paid the bills, making sure you have charged all the families the tuition, making sure that you have all of your, all the medications haven't expired in your medication cabinet. All of the children have all of their immunizations. I mean, that alone is a full-time job in some programs. There's so much to keep track of. So you have to be detail-minded in order to survive in being a center director or a leader. How are you as a servant leader? A servant leader is different than you might think. It's not doing everything for everybody, right? It's not truly being the servant like in, oh my gosh, it just left my brain. The TV show that was on with the English TV show, and they had the wealthy people and then the servants. Somebody will remember it for me. It's not that show, okay? It's not that show. Being a servant leader means you're facilitating. Downton Abbey, thank you. I knew someone would know it. Facilitate. You are there to support. You're not there to do for, right? You're not there to tell them what to do. You're listening with care. You recognize that all roles are important. None of them are better or above the other. You ask tons of questions, Like that open-ended question thing you're supposed to use for the kids, you use for the teachers too. You practice consistency. Sometimes that's really, really hard because consistency and equity are not the same thing. But consistency means that you approach things in the same manner. You remember what people tell you. There's nothing more awful than having your center director not remember when you told them you were taking a day off. You requested it, you put the paperwork in, and they don't remember. And they're upset with why you're not there. Priority is not seniority, or seniority is not priority, depending on how you want to say it. Just because you've been there the longest doesn't mean you get the priority. And recognition is last. Your recognition, this means, right? Your recognition. You could care less if you get recognized, right? What's more important is that your team is recognized. And you create connections, right? You talk to your staff, your teachers about the things they love to do, their hobbies, what they did over the weekend, what their kids are up to, the one that's going off to college, how are they doing? You know, that new baby grandchild, how's that going, right? Have you had enough love on that baby yet? You know, you get to know them and you create those connections that allows you, right, to support them. Yep. Teamwork is a dream work. I'm not always sure about that though, you guys. I'm not always sure about that. Here's a really obvious one, and this one sounds really kind of easy. Are you friendly? I mean, really think about it. Are you friendly? Even on the worst days? Too friendly. I love that one. Not always. Absolutely. Define friendly. Absolutely. Friendliness is smiling, being pleasant, having a look of not panic, not overwhelmed, but content, happy. You smile when people walk in the room. Your tone of voice, this one in the middle, I couldn't find a good icon for tone. Your tone of voice isn't too loud. It isn't too soft. It's just right, right? The mask did help. You guys are funny. It's also what you don't say that counts. It's your body language, right? Friendliness when you've got your hands folded or your arms folded across your front doesn't always look friendly or open, right? Or are you defensive? Are you frustrated? Even on the worst days, friendliness is critical to every person you encounter in your program, whether it's your teachers, whether it's your parents, whether it's the kiddos, because it's customer service. It's part of customer service. And our parents are our customers. And sometimes in early childhood education, I've run into situations where we forget that. Yes, they pay our tuition. That tuition pays our salaries, right? So even on the worst days, remembering that customer service is the most important thing. Because if parents see you sweat, if your coworkers and your teachers see you sweat, then you're even going to have a harder time when you need to deal with challenging situations, or you need to reprimand someone, or you need to do something that's different or maybe difficult. It's going to be harder to do that. But if you remember customer service rules, you know, smile when you answer the phone, right? That's the traditional one, right? You have to remember, too, being out in public, being online. You don't know how many times I know and I've seen coworkers, and yes, former students, if any of you are on the call, I remember seeing some of you or some people, I can't give examples and I won't, but talking in a way about what a horrible day it was at their job that day because they had difficulty with their kiddos. Well, guess what? If your friends or family know friends or family and they say two things to the next person, it gets back to the families of the kiddos in your program. And it becomes a problem. So remember, customer service, and I know there's those of you out there who are like, well, I can do what I want to do in my private time. Totally. But remember that your job is a public position. and people know you when they see you in the streets and in the community. Like, you know, somebody might mention, you know, hey, your kiddos see you at the grocery store, and they're like, hey, you get groceries too? You know, I didn't know that you could get groceries. I thought you lived and breathed in your classroom, right? You know, they see you out in the world. And so you should always remember that. You want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward so that you're in the public eye. Yeah, you are. You are. So it's just something to consider all the time. Yeah, and don't let a hard moment. You guys are so good. Ruin or change your day. I love your little things that you guys are putting in the comments. Whoops, I keep flipping forward. Oh my gosh, my mouse. Open-minded. So this is one of the last ones, one of the last two. Being open-minded. How are you open-minded? And some of you have said this already in your comments throughout about how you can be open-minded, right? Listening to others, right? Putting yourself in other people's shoes, right? Being fully present with others. Read about diverse perspectives. I just read a book in with our college, with our university. We're doing a book study, and it's called, the book is called oh my gosh, now it just left my head. We Are Not Like Them is what it's called, and it's about a police shooting of a 14-year-old unarmed black young man. He dies. I'm going to give it all away. And what happens between the two best friends? One is white, one is black. The one who's white is the husband who was involved in the shooting. The one who's black is the local TV reporter. How do they handle this? Excellent book. Highly recommend it. Very interesting. You refrain from judgment, right? Refrain from judgment until you know people, right? You can't judge someone until you know them. And even then, how is it your place to place judgment on others? See potentials in others. The book was called We Are Not Like Them. Unfortunately, I don't have the author handy. I left the book downstairs. Knowing people as a learning opportunity, right? So whenever you see someone and meet someone, you're learning about them, right? You're learning about them, their culture, their interests, their desires, their hopes, their dreams, all of it. Open to uncomfortable conversations. Uncomfortable conversations we often call difficult conversations, right? They might be things that we don't want to talk about. And I mentioned it earlier, like what if we have a little boy in our program who wants to dress like a little girl? Whoa, that's a difficult conversation. That's an uncomfortable conversation. Well, that's really a conversation we don't have a lot of. We've got some great children's books about that these days. We've got some great articles about that these days. But have you guys all sat down as a staff or as a group of teachers and talked about how you're going to support that child and that family? And I think, Janelle, Edutopia is a great online organization that does a lot of training and stuff online. They're great to follow on Instagram and Facebook, Edutopia. And they had a comment about difficult subjects. And they said they're really not difficult, they're just not talked about. That's why they're difficult. The more we talk about them, the less difficult it will become. And I'm like, ooh, love that, love that. I'll put it in the box here, Edutopia. And you want to seek equity. And again, this is a whole training on its own. Equity. Uncommon topics like that too. Seeking equity means that you're not seeking for everything to be equal because things can't be equal. Because not everybody needs the same thing. Not every one of your teachers needs the same thing. Not every one of your families needs the same thing. But we want to seek equity, which means we want to get them what they need. Right? So that's what's important. Being open-minded means seeking equity. What do you need to change about your processes, your procedures, your conversations, your program that can make things more equitable for the children, families, and your educators in your group? So like I said, that's a whole training on its own, but it's there. Whoops. So questions you can ask yourself to be more open-minded would be, what if, or why not? What if? Why not? Putting those two questions in your vocabulary on a daily basis will not only make you more open-minded, but it will also fill you with wonder. at the same time. What if this is what happened? What if we did it this way? What would happen? You'd be surprised. The final thing is a forward thinker. And I'm going to go through this quick because we're at 8:30 because I talk too much. How are you a forward thinker? And forward thinking, I always think of these two things. I know I'm a big Marvel fan and a big Disney fan, if you can't tell from here. So have a vision for yourself and your program. And if you're at all a Marvel fan, this is vision. Down here, he has one of the Infinity Stones in his head, and he just is vision. So I always think of vision. Keep moving forward is from a Disney movie called Meet the Robinsons. And it's always about keep moving forward. Don't let things drag you backwards. Keep making steps forward. Keep improving. Absolutely. Thinking what if. Absolutely. Knowing how to learn. Keep moving yourself forward. Don't sit in where you are at right now. So you might be a lead teacher of a program and you might be pretty happy about it. You might be like, yeah, I love my kiddos. We're going to get some new kiddos in this fall. We usually have a good turnaround that time of year, but I have new kids throughout the year. I've got a good coworker. Everything's great. Don't just stay there. How can you be even a better lead teacher? Okay? How can you branch out beyond your classroom, beyond your little group of children and adults? And how can you support programs outside of your own? How can you train other teachers? How can you advocate for children and families? How can you see yourself 5 years down the line? Right? Keep thinking outside of the box and further ahead. Don't just sit. You know, yeah, eventually I need to get my degree. Don't wait. Just start, right? If you put your foot forward, the other one's going to come along. Otherwise, you're going to lose your balance and fall over. So keep moving forward in everything that you do personally and for your program. So Walt Disney says the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. Okay, so the final thing I want you to do, and these slides are going to be sent to you in a PowerPoint PDF that you can then refer to, okay, and they'll be sent along with your certificate link to this session. So you can take time to think through these. But I want you to think right now, as you're getting ready to sign off and finish for the night, getting ready to go to bed most likely, at least hopefully for some of you, determine what your strengths are with these 10 qualities. Which ones do you see as your really strong points? Okay, maybe people have told you that you have high integrity. Maybe people have told you that you are super friendly. That's a really big strength of yours. And then think about one challenge. There's going to be multiple strengths. I guarantee you, you'll have multiple strengths. But identify only one challenge to start with. Even if you've got 8 of the 10 you think are your challenges. Pick one. Okay, pick one. Then create a weekly action step. One thing per week that will help you with that challenge. So say, for example, your challenge was, I'm going to keep, are you organized, right? Maybe your one challenge, okay, is to get a planner or get a planning app on your phone. The next one is to add, all of your dates into your planner, right, for the next 3 months, right? Go in and get all of your due dates for different reports or things that you have to submit. Get those in there. Back out that licensing date, and your licensing visit is December 1st. Back out what you need to do to get that done. Do one thing per week to help improve your work in that one quality. Review that goal weekly. Post it up for yourself. Hey, I got my planner, everybody. Check this out. I got my planner, right? Guarantee you'll be the other people will be like, hey, you've got a planner. That's cool. I want one too. And then find a mentor to float ideas, receive feedback, encouragement, and support. These ideas here for improving your competence are from the McCormick Center for Early Childhood Leadership. They provide great resources for center directors to improve their practice. So I encourage you to check it out if you have not been familiar with them before. I'm going to put them in the chat here. the McCormick Center for Early Childhood Leadership. They've got a ton of resources, webinars, an annual conference. I encourage you to check out their work. And this is just a step-by-step improvement guide to help you with one challenge at a time, just one. So thank you, and I realized I didn't put my information on the last slide. Isn't that funny? So my information is on the flyer and information that you had sent out to you. But I will share my email if you need to reach out. There you go. It's in the chat. So thank you guys very, very much. And I realize that looks weird, so my email is this. Oh my goodness, I can't type. Wonderful. Oh my gosh, Yesenia, super friendly, detailed-minded person. Yes, multiple reminders can be very helpful. And putting things up in like big places. So if you've got things that you need to work on, unless it's confidential, you know, put it out for people to see. You know, put it on your desk, put it on your countertop, put it on your cabinet door, put it on your, you know, I don't know, wherever you're going to see it on a daily basis. That way you can always follow back to it and kind of always have that reminder. And other people can help you with that reminder too. I remember once when I was working with a teacher and she, hold on, I'm trying to type McCormick. She needed to learn something to stop saying something. And in order for her to stop saying it, what we did was we put a piece, I know it sounds funny, we put a piece of tape on her. So every time she would say something that we wanted her to stop saying, or said something that she didn't need to say, we would put a little piece of tape on her. And at one point we gravitated towards those little sticky dots. But then she had a whole bunch of tape on her by the end of the day. So then she could realize wow, she really did say that all the time, even though, you know, she didn't think she ever did. So it was very visual for her. So visual reminders can be really powerful. And yes, Josie, I will include a PDF of this PowerPoint slide so that it'll go with the email along with your certificate, which would come out, should come out to you all by the end of the day on Monday. Great, wonderful, thank you. And I hope to see you next month. You'll probably get information on that too in that email. Usually a lot of stuff comes in that email. But because you attended this session, you should get some information on the next session, which is in September. And that one's going to be on being an optimistic leader. So hopefully you'll be able to join me. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great evening. Take care of yourself, and we hope to see you in a couple weeks. Isn't that crazy? It's almost the end of August. I guess it's not really. It's middle of August. Yeah, I should say that. Don't want to rush things. Good night, everybody. Oh, thank you, Carolyn. I'm glad you did. You guys had awesome comments tonight. I couldn't even keep up. It was fabulous. Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening.